Let's now cross over to Parliament, where the House is set in anticipation of the delivery of the 2024 budget by the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta. Parliamentary correspondent Kweku Asante and George Wiafe with the business team are standing by for us. Let me start with you, Kweku. Is the House set in waiting for the Finance Minister? Is he in the House as we speak?
Well, yes, Aisha, the Finance Minister is expected to be here in Parliament any moment from now. In fact, if you look back on the chamber, you would see that a number of MPs have now taken their seats, which shows that very soon we expect the Finance Minister to come in. In fact, I've seen the majority leadership, some of them coming in. The minority leadership have not arrived yet, but the expectation is that they will come in soon. My understanding was that this morning there was a caucus meeting to sort of discuss the minority position on some of the things that they had heard coming into this. But I have here Joy Business Editor George Wiafe to give us some understanding of what we expected to see. George, in terms of information, what have you been able to glean in terms of what we should expect today?
I think that anybody that has doubts in his mind about the direction of this budget, you should just do a quick run on the IMF program and what will be the main focus. Later, when we reported this in Osabakos 2 weeks ago about the budget being influenced by the IMF program, just yesterday the Ministry of Finance issued a statement more of confirming that this program or this budget to be influenced by the fund program. And what is the fund program trying to do? Trying to reduce our debt situation and also mobilize more revenue. And I think that's one thing that will be of interest to a lot of people. I think that the fund has maintained that we are still not raising the required revenue to match our expenditure. Or if you're looking at the size of the economy, it appears that from government side, they differ. And so if you're supposed to raise more revenue, then what would be the approach? You are either going on the tangent of being efficient in collection and all the rest and roping the tax net. I had the tax net argument far back where I was in primary school. It looks like that hasn't worked. If you're looking for a short-term solution, a more secured source of improving the situation, that is where the argument about raising some tax rates and even introducing new taxes to deal with this gap. You heard the minority confirming that when the minister met them, he just gave them a fair idea about raising almost about the 12 billion I stand to be counted. Tax efficiency, tax more being aggressive, may not be able to raise that amount of money for us to be corrected again within 1 year. That confirms what we have also picked up, that there is a likelihood that the minister might have to introduce some new taxes. But again, the caveat here is that we've known in the past where even an hour before budget, certain statements are withdrawn and replaced. So you also don't want to rule out whether when they test the pot, being a political season, an election year, maybe it might not be good. So they might review some of these taxes. So that is something that we should expect or not rule out. Again, you look at the fund program, government says that they want to expand the economy. Now, when you expand the economy, it has an implication on our debt situation, debt GDP ratio and all the rest. So they will be coming with this growth and prosperity program that they believe that would aid in the expansion of the economy, support private sector to also grow. Because if government is not expanding that much, maybe the whole idea is that can the private sector be supported so they can also help in the expansion of the economy. So expect something in that area. So, but hopefully if you look at the fund program and what it's looking at, that will basically shape the direction of this budget going forward for next year.
You've said a lot about the IMF deal being the anchor for this budget.
Yeah.
Recently, there's been a lot of talk about Ghana and the IMF relation. In terms of the information you are getting, are we on the right track to get the next 600 million? And the kind of information that have come out, the finance ministry have put out a statement, actually debunking reports that they had missed a certain deadline. Of course, JoyNews had stood their ground in terms of the reporting and all that. In terms of what you are getting, are we able to get this money as soon as possible? Because the board is set to meet in terms of how crucial it is for this budget.
If you look at or if you pay closely to the fund, the board is going to meet on November 22nd to look at the second tranche coming in. And for me, when you get close to this board meeting, you just put your ears on the ground, the body language and all the rest. We understand that Right now, what the board is just looking for is that memorandum of understanding, the no objection, so that they will go ahead and meet. Again, just like what happened in the first tranche, the body language from the fund and everything suggests that we are likely to get the approval from the fund. It appears that the engagement with the bilateral creditors, the G20 group and all the rest, it appears is going well, and it looks like very soon that MOU that they will release to say that we have no objection, discussions have gone well, and Ghana is going to get. So again, I engaging the fund of record, the body language, the communication from them seem to suggest that when the board meets on November 22, they are going to give their no objection and approve the staff report that the staff put together when they came to Ghana here and release that next tranche of funds for us to get the money. So that is again what we are picking up, and it suggests that we are on track in terms of the program. If you follow the program, you realize that changes are done to how things are done and all the rest, meeting the test dates and all those things, the bilateral agreements and all the rest. And again, from what I have picked up, it appears that we are on track to meet all these targets and to get that MOU from the bilateral creditors that will go to the board and the board to meet. And unless something happens in the last minute, it appears that we are on track to get this money from the IMF.
So the finance minister had told the finance committee, and according to the minority, that he's seeking to raise about 12 billion Ghana cedis, and that is just about $1 billion. That is what we expected the e-levy to raise, for instance. Haruna Idrisu, speaking just a few days ago, talked about reviewing some of the existing taxes. Do you think that there is space within the fiscal policy of government to review existing taxes at all or remove any at all?
Government might want to review the taxes, but also you want to look at the ability to pay. If you gauge the pulse of businesses out there, there is this whole thing about tax fatigue. They feel that they are being strangled is the same businesses that are paying the tax. So yes, but if you again, I look at there's an organization of tax agencies around the world which Ghana is part of. And apparently going through that data, it is not true that Ghana is the lowest in the region when it comes to our tax GDP ratio. We're actually doing far better than several countries in the South region. Apparently, even for last year alone, in terms of growth in tax collections, Ghana recorded about 2% or so, far better than other countries. So the whole argument that we are not raising the required revenue and taxes, if you go through that data, it doesn't back that argument. So there is a problem about the ability to pay and whether the environment is right to put in these things. Yes, of course. E-levy is a typical example about why consensus should be built when we are putting out these tax measures. From the academia to the experts to the analysts, they all raised questions about the structure of this tax and whether it's going to work. So if this government is a listening government, they should go back and look at the problems that happened pre-introduction of e-levy and what it went through. And for if these businesses are saying that they cannot pay these taxes, I think it's just have to listen to them.
Yeah. So Aisha, that is the situation here in Parliament. I'm just calling an MP to join us here very shortly so that we can have an understanding of what exactly they are getting. But George, of course, giving us a certain fundamental of what we are to expect. Of course, we must put on the record that the minority have been insisting that they will not be part of the introduction of any new taxes. What would that mean? They have 137 MPs. Are they able to reject any tax measure on the floor if the majority side is able to marshal all its numbers to come out to the floor? That is key. But I want to go back to George again and talk about the view on the economy. There is so much riding on credibility of the economy and the credibility in the economy. Do you think that some of the rhetoric coming from the minority about hampering government's ability to raise revenue is something that is going to affect us even in terms of our bilateral creditors, because they are trying to forgive you, they are trying to help you, and then they hear locally that some of your partners, including the opposition, are saying that they are not going to help you raise any revenue. What signal does that send outside?
I think that what happened with e-levy will sometimes tell you how government sometimes may do whatever they have to do to have their way. So in terms of what the minority thinks, the minority will talk all right, but when it comes to the final thing to be done, would they approve or disapprove of it? But don't forget that for these external partners in the credit, they're looking at your data. If you look at the macro numbers, we've seen some stability, whichever way you want to look at it. And for them, that is very, very important. Are we seeing that stability? Inflation. There are even projections that we might end the year at about 27%, far lower than the 30 and 29% that the Bank of Ghana has projected. Yeah. And what is going to feed into that? Don't forget that going into next year as well, some extra measures are going to come in to try and lower the inflation down. So they are going to look at the macro numbers and also look at government actions in terms of, because even though we are raising revenue, it is still not enough to fund government's expenditure. Can government scale back on expenditure to deal with that? Maybe yes. So if you look at the number for them, even though the minority will raise concerns, they look at the end of the day, what will happen? Has government been able to give them the assurance that they will get the minority to come on their side? It's a give and take. Maybe if government is able to scale back on certain things, the minority will then come on board to support these whole tax measures. But for me, the argument is that e-levy challenges should be a guiding principle in whatever tax measure that government would want to introduce in the 2024 budget.
Yeah. George making the point about how crucial it is for the government to actually look at the challenges that the e-levy faced before they introduce any new taxes. George, thank you. I'll come back to you shortly. But I have a member of parliament who is coming to join me to discuss some of the key issues that have been happening over the past few weeks, and he will give us some understanding of what exactly the understanding they have in terms of what exactly is going to happen. So, Honorable, in terms of what you are listening, are we expected to see new taxes? Do you have any confirmation on that?
Not yet, but clearly what I'm expecting is to hear something that is going to help us fight our climate change. And I think looking at the emissions that we are seeing nowadays across both vehicles and our industry, we don't have heavy industries anyway, but obviously there are some emissions that we need to start tackling them from now. And I'm sure there should be something in there for that.
That is Paul Chumberima, the MP for Doma East. Of course, one of the persons who have been tipped to partner Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia into the 2024 elections. The conversations are ongoing, and I'm sure we can have that conversation at a later time. But already we've heard from your colleagues in the NDC who say they are not going to support any new taxes, who say that if government is to introduce any measures that is going to impoverish the ordinary Ghanaian, they are going to fight back. Do you sense that you and your colleagues on the majority side have the appetite, like you fought during e-levy, to stand by government to shepherd this economic policy through to be able to get anything?
Obviously, if it is something good that's going to help the country, we will support it. But you see, I don't expect the finance minister to introduce any tax that's going to burden any Ghanaian at this moment. I am confident. I'm aware that certain taxes are going to be scrapped or some are going to be reduced. I mean, I'm aware that even taxes on sanitary pads and other things are going to be taken off in terms of agricultural machinery and other things. So clearly, we are on course of not burdening any Ghanaian at this moment. However, there are certain areas also that if we think, like climate change, is a main issue across the globe.
So climate change is so important when there are ordinary Ghanaians who think they can't even get food to eat. Climate change is good, but is it something you want to do now?
When the environment is going to wipe away the average Ghanaian, then we need to protect the environment to keep the Ghanaian.
Some will tell you that we are not there yet as a country.
Oh no, we are
Look
there.
at the bread and butter matters first. Bread and butter.
No, emissions.
Bread and butter.
No, emissions.
Honorable bread and butter.
No, emissions. Yeah. Emissions are critical to us. For me, if we go to the United Kingdom, you know there's some part they call the congestion area or the emission zone. Now, immediately you get to that place, you pay tax, some sort of taxes are there. Those things, for me, I think we should introduce it in our country. Because there are some cars that if you see, and some industry that you see, and the kind of emissions that they produce, and even when you're in traffic, the kind of, I mean, clearly you can see that the average Ghanaian at one point may not be able to take care of him or herself. So obviously that is also going to burden the economy. So we need to wait, but I don't expect any taxes that are going to burden Ghana. It's going to be a stability and development growth budget, and I don't expect my other colleagues to be worried about going to burden Ghana. It can't be, it shouldn't be.
Before you go back to the chamber, this weekend you expected to go to Rock City, but now that has been cancelled. You have to do the post-budget workshop here in Parliament because the people say you need to be able to cut down on expenditure. You are the elected representatives. They want to see that you are tightening your belt just like everybody else. Do you think that you can have a successful post-budget workshop within the vicinity of Parliament?
Why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't we? I support the fact that, yes, if we are not going anywhere, we should do it here. Obviously, that's one part of the process that's showing Ghanaians that we are all part of tightening our belt. So I think we should have a very good one, and it's going to be good.
All right. Thank you very much. That is Paul Chumberima, the Member of Parliament for Doma East, and George Wiafe will be back with me in a moment. So that is the situation here in terms of the persons and what they expect that they want to be seen done. The Honourable Member is confirming to us that there may be new taxes, but he does not expect that those taxes will overburden the Ghanaian public. Before we hand over back to the studio, George, the MP tells us that he expects some taxes to go off in terms of some rejigging, like the tax on sanitary pads, for instance. But generally, what sense have you gotten, and what kind of outlook is this budget going to show?
I think that I can confirm on the sanitary pads as well. It might be a give and take. So you have a situation where some taxes will be taken off, because I understand that the Association of Ghana Industries has also pushed very hard on this for it to be scrapped. So the tax on sanitary pad indeed will be scrapped, but you could also look at taxes being done in other areas as well. So yes, of course, it's confirming, or earlier reports that government will be reviewing some of the tax measures. Let's say review tax measures more firmed up to raise that 12 billion that is looking at, and let's see those growth programs that they'll be putting out, because government is also very interested about how can they support the private sector as well to grow. So whilst they are putting in the taxes, there will also be some incentives to support the private firms so that they can expand. And when they expand, they can employ more, they can contribute more in taxes. And that is what government believes that can help going forward to meet these revenue issues and all the rest. Yeah.
So Aisha, as you take it back into the studio, a few things are confirmed and a few things we are beginning to learn that new taxes may be expected. But of course, George has said it, I said it earlier, that when it comes to budget matters, 1 hour, 30 minutes, 15 minutes to the budget presentation, a few things can be pulled. And so you cannot confirm anything. But if anything we've heard so far is anything to go by, some taxes are expected to go. The taxes on sanitary pads, a lot of people have made a lot of noise about it, and the expectation is that government is going to rejig it a little bit. We do not know in terms of how exactly that is going to be done. We are going to get confirmation very soon when the finance minister mounts the days. As you can see behind me, so many members of parliament have now taken their seat. The only thing left now is the finance minister to come in, for the speaker to come in and gavel the house in session. It's going to be a very light business today. The house is just going to deal with the matters of the budget. Both leaders are going to comment on it, and then they will call it a wraps. Tomorrow they'll do some business, on Friday as well. Then Monday they'll come back to debate the key principles as have been outlined in the budget after the post-budget workshop, which will be held here in Parliament. So those are the key issues that have come. I've just seen the Executive Director of the National Cathedral, Paul Opoku-Mensah, just coming in. So a lot more people are coming in. The Bank of Ghana governor expected to come in any moment from now. His seat is there. The NPP chairman is here, Attorney General, other ministers. So Aisha, take it over in the studio, but it's a chamber that is forming up, and very soon we expect Ken Ofori-Atta to begin his presentation on the 2024 budget to the Ghanaian public.